We talk about the cloud and the information superhighway, but what if I told you the internet is actually a physical beast, a massive, tangible thing made of wires, money, and data? We tend to think of it as this abstract thing that just exists, but that's not the whole story. In this explainer, we're going to tear down those metaphors and show you the real machinery, the undersea cables, the giant server farms, and the surveillance economy that's really powering your digital life. So let's just dive right in with a question that might completely flip how you picture the internet. We all look up when we think of the cloud, right? But its real heart, well, it isn't floating above us at all. It's actually deep, deep beneath the waves. And that is not an exaggeration, 95%. It's not satellites, and it's definitely not magic. The entire global internet. I'm talking about your video calls, the shows you stream, the messages you send across the world. It's all just pulses of light flashing through glass fibers, often no bigger than a garden hose, wrapped in armor plating. We're talking about something like 1.4 million kilometers of this cable. That's enough to wrap around the entire planet more than 30 times. This, right here, is the real physical backbone of our connected world. Okay. So let's get that whole cloud idea out of our heads for a minute and really dig into the physical truth. The internet, at its core, is a network of networks. It's this massive, sprawling collection of actual hardware. And to manage all the information flying around, it uses a really, really clever trick. It breaks everything down into teeny tiny pieces. So every single thing you do online, whether it's loading a web page or sending a photo, gets chopped up into these little digital envelopes we call packets. Each one gets a little piece of the data and an address for where it's supposed to go. And then they just zip across the network all on their own. They might even take different routes to get to the same place. This whole process is called packet switching, and it's the secret sauce that makes the internet so resilient. If one path gets clogged up, the packets just find another way. It's brilliant, really. And where are all these packets racing to? Well, they're going to and from buildings that look like this, data centers. This is the physical cloud. So forget all that fluffy white stuff in the sky. Picture massive windowless warehouses just humming with tens of thousands of powerful computers, servers, all being cooled by these incredibly loud air conditioners. They're usually clustered in strategic places like Data Center Alley in Northern Virginia, because they're close to major fiber optic lines and have access to cheap, plentiful power. These are the real engine rooms of our digital world. And the whole thing happens at just a mind-boggling speed. You type in a web address, you hit enter, instantly your request shoots off to a domain name server, or DNS. You can think of the DNS as the internet's phone book. It looks up the name you typed and finds the right numerical IP address that computers can understand. Then your browser connects to the server at that specific address, and that server starts firing back the website's data in thousands of those little packets. A journey that could cross a continent happens in less time than it takes you to blink. So if the internet is made of all these very real, very expensive things, cables, servers, buildings, the next question is pretty obvious, right? Who owns it all? And the answer, well, it isn't quite as simple as you'd think. It actually reveals this hidden power struggle that is quietly reshaping our entire digital world. Here's the big idea you need to grasp. No single company, no person, no government owns the entire internet. It was designed that way, to be this decentralized network of networks, so it couldn't be easily shut down. And that's still true in principle. But in practice, the ownership of the most critical physical pieces, those incredibly important undersea cables, has become, frankly, terrifyingly concentrated in the hands of just a few very powerful players. I mean, just look at this list. Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft. These are what we call the hyperscalers. They're tech giants with such enormous global computing needs that it's actually cheaper for them to build their own private global infrastructure than to rent it from the old-school telecom companies. Google's cables, for example, they're not just for general internet traffic. No, they're private superhighways built exclusively for Google's data, connecting their own data centers all around the globe. Let that number just sink in for a second. 70%. A decade ago, these cables were built by these huge groups of national phone companies, all sharing the cost and the infrastructure. But now, that model is basically history. In just 10 years, the very foundation of the global internet has shifted from being a shared resource to being a privately owned asset. And that's not just a business trend, it is a fundamental restructuring of global power. This quote just nails the new reality, doesn't it? The original promise of the internet was this idea of democratization, a level playing field for everybody. But that promise is clashing with the cold, hard fact of its physical and economic centralization. When just a handful of companies control the pipes, they have an immense amount of influence over the flow of data, and by extension, the flow of global commerce and information itself. Which brings us to this huge paradox. Building and maintaining this global network costs hundreds of billions of dollars. So how is it possible that the biggest and most popular services on it, like Google Search, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, are completely free to use? The answer is simple, and honestly, a little bit chilling. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. This is the engine that pays for absolutely everything. In what we now call the attention economy, we're all making a trade. In exchange for free access to these amazing platforms, we become the product that gets sold. Our every click, every like, every share, every search is meticulously collected, analyzed, and packaged up. And then our attention is auctioned off to the highest bidder, advertisers who want to reach us with almost surgical precision. So what is your data and attention actually worth in cold, hard cash? Well, if you're an average user in the United States, Meta generates about $280 from you every single year. You don't get a bill for it, you don't write a check, but make no mistake, you're not just a user. On their financial reports, you are a line item. You're a revenue stream. To really get your head around how this all works, let's zoom in on the undisputed master of this data economy, Google. It has built, without a doubt, the most sophisticated and comprehensive surveillance engine in human history, and it all exists to fuel its advertising business. The sheer scale of this is just breathtaking. It's not just your searches, it's every video you watch on YouTube. It's your physical location history, meticulously logged by Google Maps. If you use an Android phone, the operating system itself is reporting back on your behavior. And here's the kicker. It follows you off of Google's properties. Millions and millions of websites use Google Analytics or Google Fonts, which means Google is often watching you even when you think you're somewhere else entirely. Now, here's the crucial point. The real power isn't in any one of these services by itself. It's in how Google combines the data from all of them. Your search history gets linked to your location history, which gets linked to your viewing habits, which gets linked to what you browse on other sites. All of this gets fused together to create this unbelievably detailed profile of you, your interests, your relationships, your health, your politics, even predicting what you're going to do next. Okay, so it's a pretty sobering picture, right? It can feel like you're completely exposed out there, but you're not powerless. Now that we understand the system, how the data moves, and how it gets tracked, let's look at a practical tool you can actually use to build your own digital shield and maybe reclaim a little piece of your privacy. One of the most popular tools for this is a VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network. The easiest way to think about it is like a private encrypted tunnel for all your internet traffic. It's designed to shield your online activities from being seen by your internet service provider, your Comcast or your AT&T, and help mask your location from the websites that you visit. So here's how it works in practice. When you connect to a VPN, it basically scrambles all the data that's leaving your computer. This encrypted data then gets sent through that secure tunnel to a server that's owned by the VPN company. And that server could be in another city or even another country. That server then gives you a new IP address, making it look like you're browsing from that location. Only then does your request go out to the final website. It's an extra step, but it's an extra step that helps to obscure your digital footprint. But let's be real here. A VPN is a powerful tool, but it is not an invisibility cloak. It's fantastic for hiding your real location and for stopping your ISP from logging every single site you visit. But if you log into your Google account while you're using a VPN, Google still knows it's you, and it doesn't stop websites from using other tracking methods, like cookies. So think of it as one really important layer of privacy protection, but not a magic bullet for total anonymity. And that kind of leaves us here. The internet was born with this truly revolutionary promise of a decentralized network, one that was free from any single point of control. And yet, today, its physical pipes and its economic engine are pushing it relentlessly towards centralization. The internet is really at a crossroads. Is it going to continue to be a force for openness and innovation, or is it going to become a tool of control for a small handful of powerful corporations? The answer to that question is going to define the future of all of our digital lives.